Hey guys, so in this video we are going to cover the first part of chapter 7, which is going to cover cellular basis of inheritance. We're going to go through meiosis, but before we go through there, we are going to talk about just sexual reproduction in general and the different styles that different organisms have. So why would something want to produce sexually versus asexually? Asexually has some pros and cons. Pros is that it's super easy. If you are an organism that can reproduce asexually, you are literally budding off a piece of yourself. You are just growing up a carbon copy of yourself. Fragmentation, budding, all of that can just grow a new organism. It's super easy. You don't have to go out and fight to try and find a mate. You don't need to compete. You don't need to grow extra structures. You don't need to go through all of that rigmarole. It's just piece falls off, grows into a new organism. If you were a coral, for example, and that's it. So super easy. A con, though, the con for asexual reproduction is the pro for sexual reproduction, and that is that life is always changing, always changing. And it's no better time than now to talk about how things are always changing all the time. So, when things are always changing all the time, you want to have your A game on. You want to be ready for anything, right? And the more genetic variation you have in a population, the better that population is able to handle changes. If you are reproducing asexually, everybody is all the same. Everybody has the exact same genome, and everybody can only grow into an organism with these kind of traits. But if you have sexual reproduction, the pro for sexual reproduction is that you are going to have this genetic variation. You might have a population with, when we talk about evolution and Darwin's finches on Galapagos, you may have a population with short beaks. You may have a population of finches with long beaks. You may have a population of finches whose beaks have evolved with a little bit of a curve to them. So now they're able to get into certain types of flowers. So with all of these different traits and variations in the trait, they're able to open up vast amount of resources. Now we can use flowers. Now we'll be able to open up seeds and nuts. And now we can, better stab at the insects hiding in the tree bark. Whatever that is, those variations in traits are a pro for sexual reproduction. It is the main reason why organisms reproduce um, sexually is because environments are always changing. If you're in a stable environment, nothing ever changes, everything's always the same, then asexual reproduction is the way to go because it's again, it's easy, it's simple, and an environment with no environmental change. No environmental change. Sexual reproduction. It is complicated. The con, no, go back. The con is that, you know, it's energy intensive. You have to grow those structures to be able to reproduce. You need to be able to produce those gametes. We're going to talk about humans producing gametes of eggs and sperm. If you're a flower, you're going to produce eggs and sperm. You're going to produce, if you're angiosperm, you're going to have to grow flower structures as a plant, where before you didn't have to. If you're going to do asexual reproduction, you don't need to worry about flowers. But with sexual reproduction, you do. If you're an angiosperm. So it's energy intensive. If you are a white-tailed deer, for example, out there, and you are a male, you're competing with all the other males so that you can reproduce with the local females. So it's energy intensive. But the pro is that, hit it again. The pro is that you have variation in genetics. Genetic variation. That is the key. That is why we want to do this. Okay, so let's talk about the different versions of sexual reproduction and who is going to be haplily dominant, who's diploid dominant, and who switches back and forth between the two as far as their dominant lifestyle. When we have these life cycles, we are going to talk about the one that you see the most. All right, is the organism that you see the most in the life cycle where they are multicellular at this stage. So there's three options for us. We learned in the previous video about diploid and haploid. Diploid was two copies. You've got mom's genetic material and you've got dad's genetic material. And together now we have two sets um, of that genetic material. We are diploid. If we only went down to half, because we're going to go through meiosis, then you are haploid. When are you multicellular? Are you multicellular at haploid or are you multicellular at diploid? Or are you multicellular at both stages? We're going to talk about those life cycles in this specific video. So let's first start off with diploid dominant. This is us. This is me and you and all the humans out on the planet. So we've got this little dividing line on this image. Down here is haploid. This is haploid. Up here in blue is diploid. We have mom and dad. Mom is diploid and dad is diploid. And eventually we are going to undergo, guys are doing this all day, every day. And then women are going to undergo meiosis and produce their eggs. Actually, all of our eggs are produced before we're born, but we finish off meiosis as we age. So anyway, we are going to go from 2N down to our gametes. Our gametes. Anytime you hear gametes, those are sperm and egg, by the way. Gametes are your sex cells. They are sperm and egg, and they are the only thing that undergoes meiosis. Everything else is the previous chapter of mitosis. You cut your finger and you need to replace those skin cells, mitosis. You need to turn over other things in your body, mitosis. The only time we talk about meiosis is gametes, sperm and eggs. So, mom is going to make eggs in the ovary, and dad is going to make sperm in the testes. And those are the gametes. And this egg is just one in. And we're going to go through the process of that in the next video, the process of meiosis. But we're going to have one in or a haploid egg. It's going to have at the end, dad is going to produce a sperm that is also haploid with just one in, just half the genetic material. And then when they come together, the sperm is going to meet with the egg. The sperm's nucleus is going to go inside the egg when fertilization happens. And now we are going to create a zygote. This zygote is 2N because we took the sperm's nucleus and it fused. It went inside when the sperm fused with the egg. Those membranes connected and the sperm's nucleus goes inside and it's going to meet up with the egg's nucleus and they fuse together. It's karyogamy. They're going to fuse together. And now instead of one N and 2N, we have one N and this one N, we have 2N together. So here is our 2N diploid zygote. And then now that we're diploid, mitosis, 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 and we go under cell division with mitosis. So now that one zygote, this one teeny tiny cell that has two nuclei that fuse together and it's now diploid, has all the genetic material to make an entirely new human. It's crazy. I think it's mind blowing that this one cell is the stem cell for all of the other cells because of this genetic material found in this one cell. And it just undergoes mitosis, it undergoes cell division, and different genes will be turned on and off to create the different cells involved in our multicellular cells as humans. So this is a diploid dominant life cycle. Diploid meaning 2N. Let's switch gears. We're going to talk about other organisms. Haploid dominant life cycle. So these guys, an example is fungi. Look at this. We got bread mold. Look at these black mold spores up there. Look at these spores. So the fungi that you may have growing on your bread, or maybe you left something like a piece of fruit in your fruit drawer for too long. I do that. I'm guilty of that. It's going to grow some fungi. Fungi are haploid or 1N dominant. They are multicellular at their 1N stage. So let's go through this. We have the same blue and gray differentiators. Blue is diploid, gray is haploid, and we're going to undergo, we'll start with the babies. We'll start with the spores. So here we have spores. Spores are a result of meiosis. So these are genetically unique. Meiosis is going to produce genetically unique things. So here's our spore, and our spore has gone out into the environment. Spores are super resistant, by the way. Spores can last like forever. So spores will go out in the environment, and it's going to find and land in an environment that works for it, and it's going to grow. Once it finds the environment that works for it, it's going to grow. So it's going to undergo mitosis, cell division, mitosis, 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 and it's going to become multicellular. And part of the fungi is this kind of, it's not a plant, so I can't call it roots, but it's like roots. They're hyphae. Their hyphae are like their roots. So fungi's hyphae is going to spread, and eventually that multicellular haploid hyphae is going to meet up with another, this one will meet up with this one, and those hyphae will touch and they will merge. So this haploid hyphae, stop, this haploid hyphae and this haploid hyphae are going to meet up, and they are going to undergo sexual reproduction where genetic material is now unique. We're going to come together. We are not going to have genetic material that is unique quite yet, but we will. So here is this unique genetic material. Here's this unique genetic material. They are going to come together. And so now we have nuclear fusion, and that is going to produce this guy over here. Stop it. That is going to produce the zygospore. And our zygospore took the one in and the one in, and now we are diploid. We are two in here for the zygospore. That zygospore is then going to undergo meiosis, and meiosis is going to produce genetically unique spores that are haploid. So we're doing the same kind of process. We are going to produce gametes. They will come together. Eventually, we're going to undergo multicellular division at some place, either diploid stage or haploid stage. We will have multicellular division, or we got mitosis, mitosis, mitosis. When does that multicellular division happen? What is our dominant life cycle? Is it the dominant life cycle at the haploid stage? These guys are haploid, or is it multicellular at the diploid stage, like you and me? This is haploid dominant life cycle. At this point where the spores are haploid and they grow up with mitosis, 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 and turn into full-grown mushrooms, full-grown fungi, and they're going to have these little hyphae. This is its dominant life stage. So this is haploid dominant. And then that hyphae, again, the hyphae is haploid, it's one in, it meets up with another different hyphae that's one in, and they will undergo sexual reproduction with fusion to produce this guy, the zygospore, which is now two in, and then immediately undergo meiosis from the zygospore, producing little baby spores that are now unique and haploid. This is haploid dominant life cycle. Now we're going to move on, if I can. Let's go. Aha. Now we're going to move on to the very last stage. And you're going to need to know these different stages and examples of these different stages. So the very last stage is called alternation of generations. And basically, these guys are multicellular at both. They're multicellular at both stages. So we talked about previously with our fungi. Fungi underwent meiosis from its zygospore and produced these genetically unique spores. So here are our genetically unique spores, and these guys are haploid. They are one in, and they're going to undergo mitosis, 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 and we are multicellular. This multicellular organism at the haploid stage, as far as plants, is called a gametophyte. This gametophyte, and if we're looking at ferns, they're cute. I mean, this guy looks like a little heart. He's so cute. He's a little heart-shaped gametophyte for these ferns that you may have in your yard or see around campus. So here's our little gametophyte, and it's multicellular at this stage. This gametophyte is multicellular. It is called a gametophyte because guess what it produces? Gametes. It produces gametes. So the gametophyte is going to produce gametes. It's either going to produce its genetic material in the form of a sperm or eggs. It's going to produce these gametes. So we are going to have haploid gametes, little sperm, and this little haploid sperm is going to meet up with another haploid egg, and together we are now going to have a diploid zygote. That diploid zygote is then going to undergo multicellular division. It's going to undergo cell division, cell division, cell division, mitosis, mitosis, mitosis. And now we have another multicellular stage, and this is called a sporophyte. The sporophyte is going to produce, you guessed it, spores. Sporophyte is going to undergo meiosis and produce the spores, and then we're back to haploid. So if we're talking about a fern, this gametophyte that produces gametes is this little bitty guy. You may not even notice it down on the ground at the base of the plant, but that's the gametophyte. As far as ferns and their sporophyte stage, this is the stage when we're talking about ferns. This is what you think of, right? This is the thing coming out of the ground that you usually see, and this is the sporophyte. Plants alternate between these. They are multicellular at gametophyte, and they are multicellular as a sporophyte. Some plants are bigger, more visual at different stages. But you may not even see the gametophyte. It may be super small and their sporophyte may be dominant. Like I'm looking out my window right now in my bedroom and we've got some pine trees in the backyard. Those guys, the pine trees, are in their sporophyte stage. Um, and that's where you're going to see that. That's their dominant stage. So different plants may have a bigger, showier sporophyte or a bigger, showier gametophyte. It just depends, but they are multicellular at both stages. So therefore, they are called alternation because they switch alternation of generations. So definitely know these three different life cycles, which one is which, and what is an example of each of these for the exam. And then next video will be on meiosis, meiosis, meiosis. Let me know if you have any questions.